Hello, Croeso. Welcome to Motivate Me on week 2. So at the beginning of every week, I have given you like a little challenge of things that we want to talk about. And this week, one of the things was choose some anti-inflammatory foods. Now in the back of this, you do have some ideas for food things to eat, and they do include anti-inflammatory foods. And I'm going to talk to you today about what is an inflammatory food and what is an anti-inflammatory food. So I think they're terms that we're quite familiar with anyway, because so like if you've got an injury like my knee and it puffed up like a big ball, I was told to take some anti-inflammatory tablets like ibuprofen, or put ibuprofen gel on it to reduce the inflammation. Now the inflammation comes from when your body is fighting against injury, infection, but it also can fight against a chemical reaction. Sometimes that is due to the food that you're eating. And I hate the word toxins, like clear out your toxins and all of that. I don't like the term. I find it like your body is superbly efficient of getting rid of toxins. If you've ever eaten something that's bad for you, you will be sick until it's out of your body, okay? You don't need to do anything else. But if you have what's called chronic inflammation, and that means not like my knee that swelled up and then, I rest it and it goes down again. But like each day you get a little bit of inflammation. So you find like you've got a very bloated stomach, you've got very puffy face, and you feel tired and lethargic. It's probably your body's way of communicating, when we go back to that interoception, about how its gut is feeling. So if you remember, we talked about the gut microbiome and how it communicates with the brain. And so what we want to do is we want to ensure that we reduce the inflammation within the gut. Now, high gut inflammation is linked to many things. And I think, you'll see some extreme posts in my mind on social media that says like, there is no such thing as chronic disease, there's only people eating rubbish food. And I think I've talked to you before about how we talked about, after the war, how healthy people were and also how slim people were. So I think I saw something the other day about how slim we all were in the 70s as a nation. And this was coming out of like post-war, where food portions were smaller, we're more likely to be cooking at home, we're less likely to be having this high processed food that is surrounding us all the time. And it's a bugbear of mine. And I think like we're told like, have this, it's cheap, or buy one, get one free, or, you deserve it, or all of those things that salespeople are using to justify to you why you should eat more and pretend it's a good thing for you. Whereas quite often healthy eating is seen as something that is something you do to go on a diet, and it's only temporary and it's not long term, and that, it's a restriction. And, you can't wait to go back to eating the foods that might have caused the gut inflammation in the first place. And I've been fascinated by this because my gut is the area that's been hugely affected since my menopause and OPS. And I still haven't got it quite right. But I'm getting there. It's getting better. The waist is getting smaller. We're doing okay. And so I find it really interesting. So what is an inflammatory food? So these are foods that disturb the gut microbiome. So like when you've watered your plant too much and it kind of goes all half dead and soggy and you can't really revive it. It's better to underwater your plant, isn't it? Because you can always give it water and it picks back up. So if you're constantly putting into your body foodstuffs that are constantly irritating it, you will have things. You could have constipation, you could have the runs, you could have a bloated stomach, you could have high blood pressure, you could have yellow eyes, you could have a collection of fat here on the inside of your eyelids, you can have, rough, dry skin, spots onto your arms. And there's all different kinds of ways that our body is saying to you, you're not feeding me as well. Now, if you had a plant, you'd kind of look at it and kind of go, oh, I don't know, I'll go on the internet and tell me what's wrong with my plant. So you can even take a photo of it. It's a shame we couldn't do that to our body. But you can understand your body. So this interoception that we've been talking about is about listening. How does your body feel? Have you got what they call a happy gut? So the anti-inflammatory foods, I've written out for you some suggestions that you can do. So a bit like taking ibuprofen for a headache or a swollen knee, you're going to take these foodstuffs that we know scientifically, okay, you don't have to take my word for it, just go and look at the research papers, reduce inflammation, okay? They support your gut health, but they also have an anti-inflammatory response. So you hear about people who kind of go on a detox diet. What they do is they eat huge amount of anti-inflammatory foods and reduce all their processed foods. They kind of go like, oh my gosh, you know, I've lost so much weight within a week. And it's not often weight, it's sometimes this water retention that we have. So if you've got puffy ankles or, you know, puffy legs, then have a look at these anti-inflammatory foods. Now, you can do different foodstuffs. So you don't have to eat specific things that you don't like. There's plenty of stuff out there that you can eat that's really good for you. So things like fruit and veg. I'm absolutely rubbish at eating fruit, okay? So the best way this is me, all right? Let's be honest here. What do people say? You're not going to gatekeep it. No, I can't remember. Let's be my authentic self. If I have a box of strawberries in the car with me when I'm driving, or cherries or mango, I'm quite happy to pick on that. But if it's in my fridge, I won't take it out and eat it. So I just don't bother now. And when I go shopping, I always buy myself a box of something. I'm addicted to strawberries at the moment, and I eat them on the way home. It's good hydration, but it's a way for me to understand where my weaknesses are. And I think that's the thing. It's not kind of giving yourself a hard time saying like, oh, I should do this and I should do that. Just don't think about it like that. Think like, I've got a headache, I'm going to take a paracetamol. I've got a bloated belly, I'm going to take some strawberries, or I'm going to take some beans, or I'm going to eat some fermented foods. And that way you will start to improve your gut health. So you'll see lots of things on the internet about protein shakes, or, you know, you can buy the greens and it goes, oh, I cleared out my gut. Yeah, you made your gut healthy. And this is not something that's like a miracle thing. This is something we've known for centuries, and we have just in the past maybe 20 years adapted our diet to move away from it. So things like having porridge for breakfast was considered to be like a good thing, whereas now you're probably more likely to have crunchy nut cornflakes, and that's high sugar processed food, whereas porridge is very natural. It's got a high amount of fibre, it cleanses the gut, the fibre is going to feed the gut microbiome. If you think about, say, for lunch, we might at lunchtime have gone to the canteen and you might have had a more traditional food of protein with veg and some carbs. Whereas now we might go and have a sandwich, and you know my bugbear with sandwiches about if that's the size of the sandwich, they put the filling here in the middle. Most of this is free. They cut it in half, so it looks like it's got loads of filling. Just take your sandwich apart and have a look at it. And then they sell it alongside crisps and chocolate and Coke as a meal deal because, you know, why wouldn't you want to eat a huge amount of sugar and processed food for lunch? We have to kind of think about logical things. So I've given you the task of increasing anti-inflammatory foods. We've done loads of stuff on this before and shown you ways to make that couscous really easy. I might post that video actually about how you can make food prep, or if you're making supper, make too much so you've got lunch the next day. Because that's the other thing, is if you're hungry and you're travelling and you go somewhere, it's very difficult at times to do it. Now I've taught my husband so we now go, if you go into a garage, you can always buy nuts. Okay, so if you're allergic to nuts, I'm really sorry. You can always buy nuts, and you can usually buy dried cranberries, something like that. So you've got the fruit and the nuts, and stay away from the crisps and the biscuits and the chocolate. After a while, your palate changes, and that's because you have changed the gut microbiome in your gut, but also the enzyme layers in your mouth. Now remember, we talked about in nutrition, within your mouth itself, you have an enzyme called amylase, and amylase starts to break down your food, but it can't do it really quickly, okay? It's a chemical reaction. So do you remember those things where you had to chew your food 20 times? It wasn't chewing the food so much, it was getting the amylase. Because if you start your digestion in your mouth by having to chew and get that amylase into the food starts to break down before it gets to the stomach. Whereas if you eat highly processed foods, okay, let's take, nothing against McDonald's, but let's take a McDonald's Big Mac. You could probably eat that in 10 minutes. You eat it, you still don't feel that full, and then after a while you kind of go, oh, I've got bellyache, because you're putting very kind of not only semi-digested food into your stomach. And the minute it goes from your stomach, so in your stomach you have a huge amount of acid into the stomach that kind of breaks down the food a little bit more, and as it comes out, it goes past your bile duct. Now your bile duct and your bile are there to wrap up and cart out what they call the toxins. So say like if you're super stressed, okay, because that's an inflammatory response, you want to make sure that when your food comes out, that your bile wraps up the hormones to take it through the gut. And again, you want to have food in your stomach for some considerable period of time to break down the elements before it leaves your stomach to go through into your bile duct area. Okay, so then it goes into the small intestines. If you eat food that is easily digestible in the mouth and it's going into your stomach not with the amount of amylase, and that food is then easily digested here and it comes out really quickly, it doesn't give your body sufficient time to keep producing sufficient amount of bile. It doesn't mean it's not doing anything, sufficient amount of bile to be able to cart it through your body as well. So food that takes more time to break down, beans, vegetables, fruit, not smoothies. Okay, you can have a smoothie if that's the only way you can digest your fruit, just go for it. Even though it's high sugar, try and balance it out with some protein at the same time. You get a slower release from the stomach. You'll feel full for longer, but also you have more bile then coming into the small intestines, wrapping around and carting out any excess hormones or, you know, the things that we don't want lurking around in our body. So have a look. Have a look at your stomach first thing in the morning, maybe measure it and then measure it in the evening, and have a think about, what did I eat today that's really inflamed my stomach? For me in particular, and I know that there's other ladies out there, or fellas, who've had low operations here, where the scar tissue is, it can sometimes bind to your bowel, okay? So adhesions are quite a common thing. And you will notice that when you have an inflammatory response, your scar tissue plays up. That is your signal. Anyway, it's a bit of a depressing talk. What I'm saying is, this weekend, when you go out, look at the food choices and think about, what can I do for me that makes me feel better? Okay? Don't worry what anybody else thinks. And everybody goes like, oh, go on, you can have some chips. Yeah, you can have some chips, but have some peas and some salad with it, or have something to balance it out. So think of those scales. You know, you can't be good all of the time. I think we did on the retreat day where Helen said about the Pareto principle, I can't even say it, okay, where you've got 80-20 split, so 80% of the time you're good and 20% of the time you can, you know, mess about. But it also flips around the other way, so 80% of the news is in 20% of the newspaper, yeah, or 80% of the dirt is in 20% of your house. 80% of your health starts here, okay? The 20% where you're doing exercise is really important, but if you don't support it with nutrition, you are always chasing the game. So let's go for it. As we say in Welsh, I'm Danny. Here we go. So next week, the whole thing is about gut health. Okay, so we're going to do more information about gut health and how you can support your gut health. It will help you sleep, it will reduce your stress, it will reduce your belly size, it will make your skin glow, it will make your hair shiny, whatever. Won't make you win the lottery, but you know, we're getting there. Take care, have a lovely weekend. Hwyl fawr pawb.